8 months away from competitive basketball. An injury layoff that kept her sidelined longer than anyone expected. A battle with the flu that would have slowed down most athletes. And on top of all that, she was coming off the bench in 4 of Team USA's 5 games. Yet somehow, when the tournament ended, Caitlin Clark was the one standing at center court holding the MVP trophy as the youngest player ever to earn that honor in a FIBA qualifying tournament. Just think about that for a moment. This is not simply a story about a talented player returning from adversity.
MVP of the tournament is none other than Miss Caitlin Clark. It's undeniable the impact she's made on women's basketball, and here in Puerto Rico had quite the showing. Her debut with the senior team, the double-double with both points and assists. And in her senior debut, she wins TISO MVP.
It is a story about what happens when an elite talent refuses to be held back by circumstances. No matter how many obstacles appeared in front of her, Clark continued to find a way to impact winning at the highest level. Now we're going to break down exactly how she did it, from the crucial game against Spain to the tournament leading statistics that separated her from the rest of the field.
All over, might as well count it in.
Gustafson spots up for 3, and Gustafson gets half an inch of space. The three-pointers looked good all tournament long. Hamby connects again up top, just off the back rim. USA comes for it. Spain comes down with it. Cazorla over to Gustafson. Gustafson off the glasses.
Perhaps most importantly, we're going to look at why this performance should have every WNBA team paying close attention heading into 2026. Because if this tournament was any indication, Caitlin Clark is only getting started. The championship matchup against Spain did not begin the way many expected. On paper, Team USA entered the game as the favorite. They had more star power, more depth, and more experience. But Spain clearly had no intention of simply rolling over.
Starting lineup today for Team USA, and it's no surprise to either of us here that it's a different starting lineup. Every single one of these games had a different starting lineup.
Opening tip, they attacked with confidence. Their young players pushed the pace, challenged defenders off the dribble, and played with the kind of fearlessness that can make even elite teams uncomfortable. Every possession felt competitive. Every basket was answered. The game quickly became a battle instead of the comfortable victory many predicted. For a while, Spain looked completely capable of hanging around with the Americans and possibly making things much more difficult than expected. One of the biggest reasons Spain stayed competitive was the play of its young stars. Awa Pham, widely viewed as one of the future stars of international basketball and a potential top WNBA draft pick someday, was scoring efficiently and showing tremendous poise against elite competition.
Doing the right thing. She knows it's going to be tough to get to the basket with too many bumps with the bigs.
Meanwhile, Iana Martin, despite being only 20 years old, was controlling the offense, distributing the basketball, and playing defense at a level that genuinely frustrated Team USA. Their confidence spread throughout the roster. Every time the Americans seemed ready to create separation, Spain answered with another strong possession. The lead changed hands repeatedly, and by the time the second quarter arrived, the game was tied. Team USA was being tested. And perhaps the most surprising part of all was that Caitlin Clark was sitting on the bench watching it unfold.
Ryan Howard on the wing, up to Caitlin Clark. Clark from deep. What a shot from Caitlin. Man down, Caitlin Clark.
That decision immediately became one of the biggest talking points among fans. Throughout most of the tournament, Clark had been coming off the bench despite being one of the team's most productive players. So when Spain was hanging around, when the offense seemed sluggish, and when Team USA struggled to consistently break down defensive pressure, fans began asking the same question all over social media. Why isn't the team's best playmaker on the floor? Spain was mixing defensive looks, throwing zones, switching coverages, and even showing elements of a box-and-one defense designed to disrupt offensive rhythm.
What's your favorite part of playing for Team USA?
Favorite part? Have we put it on this shirt?
Team USA starters struggled to respond. The ball movement slowed. The pace disappeared. Possessions became stagnant. It looked like the offense was stuck in mud. Then Clark checked into the game, and everything changed. The transformation was immediate. The moment Clark stepped on the floor, the tempo shifted.
Spain, one of the best young prospects there is around the world. Kelsey Plum wide open for three, cannot leave her.
Suddenly, the defensive pressure Spain was applying became opportunities for Team USA instead of problems. Clark was reading coverages before they fully developed. She was pushing the ball up the floor, finding teammates in transition, and forcing defenders to make impossible choices. If defenders stepped up to contain her, she found open shooters.
Clark trying to get open now, passes it over to Beckers. Beckers uses the re-screen, falls, finds Clark, who gets the extra pass in the corner to Copper, and Copper.
Back, she attacked. And when defenders tried to pick her up further from the basket, she simply extended the floor with her shooting range. Spain suddenly had to guard areas of the court they had not been concerned about moments earlier. That ability to stretch a defense is one of Clark's greatest strengths. She doesn't just score points. She changes the geometry of the game itself. People inside the program noticed it as well. One source close to Team USA summed it up perfectly by saying that Clark was the player who got them going offensively.
Here's Young, looking to take advantage of a wide open Howard. Can't this time, and Gustafson with the rebound, but she saves it inbounds to Caitlin Clark, and Caitlin Clark is there.
That statement was not based on hype or reputation. It was based on what actually happened on the floor. Nearly every meaningful run Team USA produced came with Clark directing traffic. The final score showed an 84-70 victory, but that margin can be misleading. The game was far more competitive than it appears when looking only at the scoreboard. Spain played well. Their young players competed fearlessly. Yet whenever Team USA needed a spark, Clark seemed to provide it. She took a close contest and helped turn it into a comfortable victory. One statistic from the tournament stands out more than almost any other.
Her and Paige buckets.
Copper.
Caitlin Clark played more total minutes than anyone else on Team USA. Not just in the Spain game. Throughout the entire tournament. Think about how unusual that is. A player who was not starting most games still ended up leading the team in minutes played. That tells you everything you need to know about her importance. Coaches may have chosen different starting lineups, but when the games mattered most and the pressure increased, Clark was the player they trusted to stay on the floor.
The glass, a nice finish to take the lead. Caitlin Clark tries to come the other way. The late whistle will put Clark to the line for 2 points.
And
when you really stop and think about it, the situation becomes even more remarkable. Imagine a player coming off the bench in 4 out of 5 games while simultaneously leading the team in minutes played, assists, efficiency, and plus-minus. That is not something you see often in basketball.
Clark in transition. Clark turns the corner, and it's going to be a foul called on number 5 for Team Spain. Maite Cazorla, her first personal foul of the game.
Numbers belong to the unquestioned centerpiece of a team. Yet Clark accomplished all of it despite not always hearing her name called with the starters. That contradiction became one of the biggest storylines of the tournament. Every statistic seemed to scream the same thing. Regardless of her role at tip-off, she was the player driving Team USA's success. The raw numbers only strengthen that argument. Clark averaged 11.6 points per game and 6.4 assists per game while leading the team in multiple efficiency categories. She finished with 32 total assists across 5 games. She led the roster in free throws made, free throws attempted, and 2-point field goal percentage. She controlled possessions, created opportunities, and consistently made winning plays. Yet perhaps the most impressive aspect was the fact that she accomplished all of this after spending months away from basketball. Most players returning from a lengthy absence focus on regaining rhythm. Clark returned and immediately became one of the most impactful players in the tournament.
She's the best. She's not just a legend, but a great, great person.
The All-Star 5 selection that came alongside the MVP isn't just a bonus. It means the people whose entire job is to evaluate international basketball on a technical level looked at this tournament and landed in the same place the numbers did. Clark was the most impactful player on the floor across all 5 games. That's not a popularity vote. That's a basketball judgment.
The plus-minus statistic, which might be the strongest evidence of all. Clark did not simply lead Team USA in plus-minus. She led the entire tournament. Every player from every nation competing in Puerto Rico finished behind her in that category. Whenever Clark was on the floor, Team USA consistently outscored opponents at a higher rate than anyone else in the event. Plus-minus is not perfect, but over the course of an entire tournament, it becomes difficult to ignore. It measures impact on winning, and Clark's impact was greater than anyone else's. The efficiency numbers told a similar story. Across the entire tournament field, no player posted a better efficiency rating than Clark. Not just among guards. Not just among Americans. Among everyone. Every nation brought talented players to Puerto Rico, yet when the event ended, Clark stood alone at the top. That achievement becomes even more impressive when you remember the circumstances. She was returning from injury, fighting through illness, and adjusting to a role that changed from game to game. Despite all of that, she remained the most efficient player in the tournament. Her assist numbers deserve special attention as well.
Successful tournament for Team USA as they go home with 5 wins under their belts.
Averaging more than 6 assists per game at the international level is not easy. FIBA basketball is different from the WNBA. Defenses are often more compact, more disciplined, and specifically designed to take away passing lanes. Yet Clark continued creating opportunities. She consistently found teammates in transition, delivered precise passes in pick-and-roll situations, and manipulated defenders with her vision. Even while coming off the bench, she was generating offense at a level few players could match. The free throw statistics reveal another important part of her game. Players do not get to the line repeatedly by accident. Drawing fouls requires aggression, confidence, and an ability to put defenders in difficult situations. Clark was constantly attacking gaps in the defense, forcing opponents to react. Every trip to the free throw line represented pressure placed on the defense. It showed that she was not merely settling for outside shots. She was attacking every aspect of the game. When you put all of these numbers together, a fascinating picture emerges. The statistical evidence pointed strongly in one direction while some of the coaching decisions pointed in another. The player leading the team in many of the most important categories was also the player beginning games on the bench. That contrast became impossible to ignore. Yet Clark never seemed distracted by it. She simply continued producing whenever her number was called. And when the tournament ended, the results spoke for themselves. 8 months away from basketball. 4 games coming off the bench. A battle with illness. And still, the youngest MVP in tournament history, winning the MVP award was not about popularity. It was earned through performance. Clark's averages, efficiency numbers, assists, and plus-minus all supported her case. Every game added another piece of evidence. By the time the tournament concluded, there was little debate left. She had been the most impactful player in Puerto Rico. Even more impressive, this was not the first time she had earned MVP honors in a FIBA-sanctioned event. She had done it before as a teenager. Now she was doing it again against stronger competition after a lengthy absence.
Overall, very, very pleased with the tournament, our group. We got a great group of women that are proud to wear a USA jersey, which is awesome. And it was a lot of fun for me coming down here. I thought I was going to be on vacation as an assistant, and Kara had to get back to more important stuff, and so I appreciate the players and the coaching staff that helped me along the way.
I still got the tan like you're on vacation.
Yes.
You're doing.
The All-Star 5 selection that came alongside the MVP award made Clark's tournament even more impressive because it confirmed that her success was not simply about statistics. The coaches, analysts, and basketball experts evaluating the tournament reached the same conclusion the numbers already suggested. They looked at every possession, every matchup, and every game situation, and they consistently arrived at one answer. Caitlin Clark was the most impactful player in Puerto Rico. Being named to the All-Star 5 is recognition that comes from basketball people who understand exactly what they are watching. They saw how she controlled the pace of games, how she manipulated defenses, and how her presence elevated the players around her. The MVP trophy recognized her production, while the All-Star 5 selection validated her overall influence on the tournament. Together, those honors sent a powerful message. Clark was not simply one of the best players in the competition. She was the player everyone else was measured against, and perhaps the most exciting part of all is that Clark is still improving. That reality should make opponents nervous and fans incredibly optimistic. It would be one thing if she were already at her peak and simply maintaining a high level of play. But that is not the case. She is still developing physically. She is still learning new ways to attack defenses. She is still expanding her understanding of the game. Every year she seems to add something new to her arsenal, whether it is improved shot selection, stronger defensive awareness, or better decision-making in critical moments. This tournament felt less like the arrival of a finished product and more like another step in an ongoing evolution. The version of Caitlin Clark that dominated Puerto Rico may not even be the best version basketball fans will eventually see. That naturally brings the conversation to what comes next. Because what happened in Puerto Rico should not be viewed as an isolated event. The lessons learned, the chemistry developed, and the confidence gained during this tournament will carry forward into both the WNBA season and the 2026 World Cup. Clark spent these games operating in an offense designed to maximize her strengths. She was pushing the pace, creating opportunities out of pick-and-roll situations, and making quick decisions in transition. Every possession seemed designed to put the ball in her hands and allow her basketball instincts to take over. As she returns to Indiana, she brings all of those experiences with her. The growth she showed in Puerto Rico does not stay there. It becomes part of her game moving forward. And that is why so many people are already looking ahead to the future with excitement. One of the biggest storylines to emerge from the tournament involved the coaching approach and how different systems affected Clark's role. Throughout portions of the competition, there was ongoing debate about whether she was being used in the best possible way. Some observers felt that earlier lineups often positioned her away from the center of the offense, limiting her ability to dictate the flow of the game. Others argued that Team USA was trying to maintain balance by spreading responsibilities across the roster. Regardless of where people stood in that debate, one thing became increasingly clear. Whenever Clark was allowed to operate as the primary initiator, the offense looked more dangerous. Possessions became faster. Ball movement improved. Defenses struggled to keep up. The contrast became impossible to ignore as the tournament progressed. One of the biggest storylines to emerge from the tournament involved the coaching approach and how different systems affected Clark's role. Throughout portions of the competition, there was ongoing debate about whether she was being used in the best possible way. Some observers felt that earlier lineups often positioned her away from the center of the offense, limiting her ability to dictate the flow of the game. Others argued that Team USA was trying to maintain balance by spreading responsibilities across the roster. Regardless of where people stood in that debate, one thing became increasingly clear. Whenever Clark was allowed to operate as the primary initiator, the offense looked more dangerous. Possessions became faster. Ball movement improved. defenses struggled to keep up. The contrast became impossible to ignore as the tournament progressed. The game against New Zealand provided one of the clearest examples of that philosophy. Clark entered the starting lineup and immediately became the engine behind everything Team USA wanted to accomplish. Playing alongside talented teammates who could both score and create, she orchestrated possessions with remarkable confidence. The pace never slowed. The ball never stuck. Defenders were constantly forced into impossible decisions. If they focused on Clark, someone else became open. If they shifted attention elsewhere, Clark attacked herself. The chemistry developing within that lineup was obvious. More importantly, it showed how dangerous Team USA could become when multiple elite playmakers shared the floor together.
For the coach, how will you evaluate the team's overall performance with the biggest positive, and from your perspective, the areas does the team still need to improve moving forward?
Yeah, I think KP hit on it. Just, this is a new group with a new staff. I was pleased with our ball movement. I thought we did a really good job of making the extra pass. We got some wide open threes. Obviously, we're super talented, but I loved how unselfish we were.
The discussion about pace also became an important part of the tournament's broader story. Basketball is often a game of styles. Some coaches prefer a slower, more methodical approach built around half-court execution. Others believe in pushing the tempo and forcing defenses to react. Clark's strengths naturally align with the second philosophy. She thrives when the game is moving quickly. She thrives when decisions must be made instantly. She thrives when defenders are scrambling. Throughout the tournament, the evidence repeatedly suggested that Team USA was at its best when embracing that identity. The faster the game became, the more difficult it became for opponents to contain Clark's influence. Perhaps no development from Puerto Rico carries more long-term significance than the chemistry Clark built with Paige Bueckers. Before this tournament, the two had limited opportunities to share the floor together in meaningful competition. They arrived with different backgrounds, different experiences, and different basketball journeys. Yet within just a few games, they began developing the kind of connection that normally takes months or even years to establish. They seemed to understand where the other player wanted to be. Clark would push the ball up the floor, and Bueckers was already moving into position. Bueckers would cut into open space, and Clark would deliver the pass before the defense could react. It looked natural, almost effortless, despite how little time they had actually spent playing together. That partnership has the potential to become one of the most dangerous combinations in international basketball. What makes it so difficult to defend is the versatility both players bring. Clark can score from deep, create for teammates, and control the pace. Bueckers can do many of the same things. When two players with that level of skill share the floor, defenses are forced into impossible choices. Double one player, and the other becomes dangerous. Focus on stopping the pick and roll, and shooters become available. Protect against the pass, and scoring lanes appear. Throughout the tournament, there were stretches where opponents looked completely overwhelmed by the options available to Team USA whenever Clark and Bueckers worked together. Another storyline that drew attention involved Angel Reese and her adjustment to the evolving system. Early in the tournament, some observers questioned how her game fit within a faster pace. Reese has traditionally been most effective when operating around the basket, securing rebounds, and establishing position in half-court situations. When Team USA increased its tempo and began emphasizing transition opportunities, there were moments where the fit appeared less natural. That led to speculation about how the roster would balance everyone's strengths. It was a fair question because championship teams must find ways to maximize the talents of every player involved.
That's up the three. Spain wanted the call, but Paige is leaking her against Dioso, and that one is good for Team USA as Spain calls the timeout. Mad about the no call on that one. And you think Coach Miguel Mendez will have a talk with the referees as
As the tournament progressed, however, Reese gradually found her role within the system. Instead of viewing the faster pace as a challenge, she began using her greatest strengths to fuel it. Her rebounding became the starting point for transition opportunities. She would secure the ball, quickly outlet it, and allow the guards to push the pace. Then she would sprint down the floor, creating pressure around the rim. By the time Team USA reached the later stages of the tournament, the adjustment looked much smoother. Reese was contributing in ways that complemented the style being played, proving that successful teams are often built on adaptation as much as talent. When everything is taken into account, the biggest takeaway from Puerto Rico is surprisingly simple. Caitlin Clark spent 8 months away from competitive basketball. She battled injuries. She dealt with illness. She came off the bench in most of the tournament's games. Yet despite every obstacle, she still finished with the best plus-minus, the best efficiency rating, an MVP trophy, and a place in the All-Star 5. That is not the profile of a player merely surviving difficult circumstances. That is the profile of a player thriving regardless of them. For Indiana Fever fans, Team USA supporters, and basketball fans around the world, Puerto Rico felt less like a conclusion and more like a preview. If this is what Clark can accomplish while still working her way back to full strength, then the future becomes incredibly exciting. The 2026 World Cup is approaching quickly, the WNBA season continues to evolve, and one thing has become increasingly clear. Whenever Caitlin Clark is given the opportunity to run the show, special things tend to happen.